Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. I clearly have lost my voice, you guys. So rather than sit here and make you listen to me talk the entire time, I have put together 8 great thrift flips to be a part of this wonderful collaboration with my friends Linda and Sandra. In the next couple of days, when my voice has returned, I will be releasing my video with my new projects, and hopefully my voice will be back to normal. So make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that. But let's watch these 8 great thrift flips.
I picked up this little picture at the thrift store because I actually really liked the frame of it. And when I got it, I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. And it ends up being kind of a detailed project, a lot of little components that go into it. But I love how it turns out in the end. Now, the backing of it just had that paper on there and it was glued on so well. And these little staples are so hard to get out here. It reminds me of when you're deconstructing a canvas. So I just remove all of those to get to the frame. And I'm just using some foam core board. Gosh, that was hard for me to say. Some foam core board, but you could easily use like some cardboard, even like the paper, like the actual picture, the matting that came in it would work. Just anything for a sturdy background there. And I'm taking just some scrapbook paper that looks like some wood slats here. I thought that that would be really cute to use. Now I'm just taking some white wax. So the white wax is going to brighten up this frame, and I'm just going through. This frame has a lot of texture and a lot of grooves. That's why I thought it would be perfect to use this on. So I'm giving it a very good coat. Now this stuff goes on quite thick. It's a little bit different consistency than paint is, and so you're going to be able to kind of wipe it off. So once I get it covered on there and let it dry a little bit, I'm just taking my baby wipe and I'm just wiping around all of the edges where all those ridges and the texture is, to kind of have that show through. I thought that that would be such a fun aged look, just a different distressing technique. And you can see how cute it's going to look with the contrast with that paper, that board that we have. Now I got a new glue gun, you guys. I'm loving this. This is a cordless glue gun, and I've had that glue gun I've used in my other DIYs for years and years. So I'm so excited to use this. But I'm just hot gluing this piece in here, and I think it looks really good so far. Now these windows came from Dollar Tree. They have a couple different types. If you have a chance to pick up the flat ones that are not these plastic 3-dimensional ones, I think this would go a lot quicker, or else use some spray paint. For whatever reason, I just decided to hand paint this, and it did take a little bit of time just because of all those little nooks and crannies that you have to get paint into. But I'm just covering it with some white paint. Now maybe you could even find these in a white color. Whenever I find them at Dollar Tree, they're in always like these really like almost like a lavender color or that yellow color. So after I paint that, I just take a wooden tag. You can pick these up at Dollar Tree. You can buy them unfinished in bundles on Amazon. And I paint mine black to look like a chalkboard. And now I'm just going to distress all of the edges to it. So I'm just sanding all around really good to have it look. You can see there what it ends up looking like. Now this part is up to you what you decide to do, what you put on your little tag here. I have this little word hello on a chalk couture stencil here that I'm going to use. You'll see what ends up happening. It doesn't end up turning out the greatest, but I think it ends up like a happy accident. But I'm just using my chalk couture chalk paste here to go over this stencil. You could use your Cricut. You could handwrite something. You could print something on some tissue paper and decoupage it on there. But look at when I pull this back, you can kind of see it looks like it didn't really transfer the best. But I thought, hey, I'm really going for that distressed look, so let me just kind of touch it up a teeny bit so that way you can at least see all of the letters. And I kind of embraced that rustic look that came with it and decided I would just go with it. And so I ended up really liking it. But again, it was just a happy accident. So now I'm just going to take my window and line it up on my frame here, and you can kind of see how I'm going to put this together. I'm just using my hot glue to glue this on. You could use something a little bit extra if you wanted to. I felt like hot glue is going to be just fine for this project. Just wherever I could get a little extra glue onto there. And then I'm just going to line that up. I just eyeball everything when I line it up. So if you need to measure, definitely do that. Now I had tied this rope onto the tag there, and I liked having it look like there was rope tied onto it, but I didn't like the tails hanging off of there. So I decided to glue those down on the back. And I'm just taking a little sprig of some boxwood here. This just comes from Walmart. I love their boxwood. I keep it in my stash all the time. And then I wound a couple pieces together there with some twine, and I just glued it on kind of at an angle there. I did make a little twine bow for the little tag there, but I just think this turns out so cute. I love all the different elements to it. I love the look of the rustic barnwood with that gothic window and the greenery. I just think this all pulls together really beautifully. Do you guys like this one?
This is just a reminder that today's video is part of a collaboration with Linda DIY by Design and the JoAnns Nest. Down in my description box and pinned in my comments is a link to the playlist. You can see their wonderful thrift flips that they did. And just a reminder that my other video, when my voice is returned, will be posted here as well. So just make sure you're subscribed and stay tuned for that. But tell Linda and tell Sandra hello. Hopefully their voice sounds much better than mine. Let's get right back to the DIYs.
I really loved this tin sign when I saw it, and it was the right price at $2, and it had this beautiful texture all around the edge of it, and so I thought I can really work with this. So I'm just going to use my heat tool to remove all of the stickers from the back here and give a nice clean surface to work on. And I'm spraying it down to get it all clean, all that dust and grime wiped away here, and starting with a nice clean slate that we want to do. My original intent with this sign was to paint it all completely white and then use some different colors to kind of make that texture on the edges pop. However, when I got to this point and kind of started seeing how the dry brushing looked on that tin, I was like, ooh, I really want to have that be what it looks like. So I'm just going to wipe the paint back and start completely over. As I'm wiping the paint, it's drying. So I'm just going to spray a little bit of my mister on there, and that's just going to help dampen the paint. So it's easy for me to wipe off. So just a wet paper towel or a wet wipe is going to help get that paint off of there. And then to protect that tin so I don't spill over with any of the paint, I'm just putting some painter's tape to give some nice crisp, clean edges. And it takes about 2 to 3 coats of chalk paint to cover that middle design there. And because I don't want to see that at all, I want to kind of have this be its own sign and not see any of that. I mean, the sign was beautiful the way it was, but it's just not what I'm going for. So now I put a little antiquing wax on a paper towel here, or just a towelette or something, and I want to age this color of paint here. I want it to look like it's been around for a very long time. So I'm just kind of smearing some antiquing wax on this. You create a lot of texture when you're using the chalk paint with brush strokes or whatnot. And so this is what's fun about using chalk paint, is it can go to all of that antiquing wax can go into all of the different texture that you created. So it really is fun to play around with different types of waxes to see the different types of finishes you get on different colors. So I'm just rubbing this all around here and kind of going back and forth to dip it in some more wax on here. Now I don't leave it this heavy, so I'll show you how I rectify that, because it does look pretty heavy at this point. So I'm spraying my mister on here, and this is just going to add a little bit of water on there, and I will come in and just kind of wipe it back. And this is going to take away some of the top layer that hasn't fallen down into all of the texture. And so that way you still get the antiqued wax look, but it's not as dark, it's not as heavy. I'm using that same towel that I used to put the antiquing wax on. I'm using it kind of like a stamp to add a little bit of extra texture, a little bit of extra aging, distressing on there. Completely optional, but I do like the way that it turns out. Now I have these stencils from Essential Stencils. There's a couple of them in this package here that say, you know, like market or antiques. And I ultimately decided on one that says vintage, just because I love this antique one, but I didn't love all of the detail on it. So I just kind of thought this one that said vintage was perfect. So I'm just using my ruler to kind of make sure that I get it as centered as I can here. And then I just place a little bit of painter's tape on the sides to hold that into place. Now I'm going to use some elephant chalk paint with a stencil brush. These stencil brushes also came from Essential Stencils, so if you do happen to get some stencils from them, pick up their brushes because they are so much better than the cheap Dollar Tree brushes, and they're not super expensive either, and they last, if you take care of them, they're going to last a very long time. But I'm just using a up and down pouncing motion as well as a swirling motion, and I let the first layer dry, and I actually go back in a second time because I wanted that vintage to really, the words to really pop, or the letters to really pop on there. So that's why I decided to go over it twice to give a nice thick coat to it. It's always fun to peel back your stencil and reveal your design. I just think this turns out so beautiful. Their stencils are amazing, so I highly recommend checking them out if you like to do stenciling or rub-on transfers at all. So now I'm just going to go over the letters here with just a little bit of paint. This is just the paint that was left over in my brush from painting the sign, to go over the letters to kind of make them look not so crisp and clear. It just adds a little bit of weathering to them, I would say, maybe even more than distressing. And then I'm going to just peel back all of this painter's tape to reveal the edge of my sign. To help this beautiful texture shine through on the edge of this is just a little bit of paint. All I've done is just dip it in a little bit of white paint, brushed most of it off, and then I'm just coming over all of the edges here, you can see, and just hitting all of it, just hits all those high points of that texture and that detail to help that pop. And I really, really love how this turns out. This has got such a beautiful design on that edge, and where it was left the color that it was, like you couldn't really even see all of that detail. So I just am taking my towel and a little bit of antiquing wax. All this is doing is it's just aging the paint that's on there a little bit, and it's brushing back some to kind of help that natural brown color kind of reveal itself as well. I think this turns out so beautiful. I can just imagine this in some cute little old time shop or something, or just something that a little storefront might have, saying that they have vintage items. This would even be really so beautiful in a little powder room or something. I love this. Where would you guys put this in your house? I just think this turns out so beautiful, and I love that my vision kind of changed as I went along with it. Instead of painting the entire sign, I had that idea to showcase that edge, and I think I'm so grateful that I made that choice because that edge looks so beautiful. I found this little stack of like blocks, not quite like a stack of books, but I got this at the thrift store and I thought it was in really good condition. But if you don't have something like that, one of these little book stacks like this would work from Dollar Tree, or even like one of the little crates that you can paint to look like a book stack. You don't have to have this exact piece, but the fundamentals of this idea are all the same. So you can definitely use this to what pieces you do have. So my original intent was I'm going to sand off all of this cute, I'm just a cute saying and everything. It's just not something that doesn't match my home or anything like that. And I wanted to kind of have more of, when you're a creator, you just see things and you just want to make them your own. And so that's kind of where I'm going with this. So I'm just sanding these off, and they actually come off really easy. Now, when I sand for projects like this, if you guys have watched me, you know, I love to use fingernail files and emery boards. I buy mine in bulk on Amazon. I will leave a link in the description box, but guys, any emery board's going to work fine. Pick them up at Dollar Tree if you would like to. But they just get into all those nooks and crannies and everything, and they work really well. Now, this piece was like one of those magical pieces because when I sanded off the design, the paint job still looked beautiful. And so it was a really easy piece. I didn't even have to end up painting this. However, if I did, I would have just used a light white cream color or something of any kind of chalk paint. And that's how I would have just gotten it. So if you pick up like a book stack or you have something else and need to paint it, just any kind of chalk paint. I went around and sanded the edges to give it a little bit of a rough farmhouse look. And I'm just wiping with a wet paper towel off any dust or anything that might be left. Now, I did purchase these stencils from Essential Stencils, and I have used some of their stencils before in my videos, and I do really like their stuff. This is not sponsored in any way. I was just very impressed with their stencils that I used, and they came out with these they have like a spring and Easter line of rub-on transfers, and I thought it would be really fun to try these. Now, I don't feel like they're quite as expensive as like the IOD transfers, But when you look at all the transfers that you get and kind of divide it by the size of the Dollar Tree transfers, I feel like you're not really that much more. You just have to buy them all at once. So, but any kind of transfers work. Amazon, you can get some rub-on transfers for very inexpensive. Pick ones up at Dollar Tree. I just feel like Dollar Tree hasn't really gotten any new ones in that I've used or seen, at least at my Dollar Tree. And so I thought this was fun because it was something a little bit different. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of these cute little flower stamps. I thought that would be really cute on here. And my original intent was to do 3 of them across this little stack of blocks. Now I quickly realized once I cut these out, and this is just how you get these off of their little sheets here, or separated, you just cut in between them here, and I just cut them down to size. But when I go to place this on here, I'm realizing it's a little bit bigger than I thought. It was kind of one of those like, oh, I didn't really calculate very well. So I thought, well, 2 would be kind of cute on there, but you know, it's just kind of a matter of personal taste, or even if you had like a couple of these blocks or book stacks together, you could probably do one of the bigger transfers on there, would be really beautiful. So I get a couple of littler ones on here, and I just kind of pick out my favorites or the ones I want on this project. And I end up doing 3 across. Now you could leave them like that, all just kind of in a row like that. I do end up pulling that first one up to the top and moving that other one down to the bottom just to have a little bit of a staggered look for visual interest. But again, you're going to do what works best with whatever you like and what looks great to your eye. It's so fun as a creator, just kind of wanting to make things your own. And so to use these transfers, you're just going to peel off, it's like a plastic like film on top of the backing. And when you peel off that plastic film, you're going to have your transfer, your design on there. And so it's going to be a teeny bit sticky, like not a lot, but enough that it's going to hold it to your surface. When you place that down, you want to just make sure it's kind of like one and done. You stick it down. It's very hard to peel it up and move it. It's possible, but you run the risk of tearing your design. So if you can get it set down exactly where you want the first time, that's best. And then I'm just using a little plastic stick here to rub this on. A craft stick, like a popsicle stick or wooden craft stick or something, works just fine. Like an old gift card, anything like that. Just something that you can use to rub onto the surface here, and it will transfer that design. Now, when you peel it, you want to just peel it really carefully. And if any of the design is left on the carrier sheet, just place it right back down and then just kind of rub over it for that to come off. You can kind of see here, I put it back down, and if there's a little bit there, I'm going into that little crack right there really good. And then I'm just going to keep slowly peeling it back, making sure that whole design transfers. These are very forgiving, but you just want to go slow in order for it to be forgiving. And because I feel like even if when you lay it back down, it doesn't match up 100%, you're still kind of going for that vintage vibe. It still looks fine. So you can just kind of see here. That's beautiful. And then I don't show this right here, but what you do, and I think I'll show it in a minute here, is you take your plastic cover and you just rub that over the design that you laid down. That helps to kind of burnish it onto the blocks there and helps seal it. And then I do end up going over it with some Mod Podge. But I'm just going to do that exact same process with the others. I work on these 2 ends here, and maybe I should have done the middle one first. I don't know. The spacing ends up being fine, especially where I can have them all on there together. I just thought getting those 2 ends together, and I have people tell me all the time, oh yeah, you start this way, or some people say, no, you start in the middle and work your way out. It worked fine for me, so whatever way works best. When you're doing it to kind of measure, and if you want to get out your like ruler and kind of exactly measure it, definitely do that, so that way you know where everything is going. But I feel like it's farmhouse. If it's a little bit off, it's totally fine. But that's me, so whatever. Anyhow, so same process here, just kind of rubbing those down and then just gently peeling them back. And it's very simple. I feel like this is a fun project if you have grandkids or kids or somebody that you want to do this with, or something, a project like this. This is something that is perfect for them because they're able to do it very simply. It turns out very beautifully. Even like a very beginner type crafting project, you have that success rate of, oh my gosh, that was really easy and it's done and it looks beautiful. One trick to do here is use a brush to tap down into the middle of like your separation, like little cracks right here, because if the design doesn't push down all the way there, that's one way to kind of tap it down into all those little nooks and crannies, and it looks great. And it's like a really nice trick to do that. Now here's where I'm taking that plastic and I'm rubbing over all of the designs on here. This is just to helping seal them, give them a nice kind of like, you're kind of polishing your design here, and it's going to be really nice and make sure it's all adhered and there's no like snags or anything poking up. I do go over the top with some Mod Podge, just any kind of Mod Podge, the kind of, if you want like a satin finish or a gloss finish, it's up to you. But this is just going to help seal it, make it a little bit waterproof. If anything, I mean, you definitely don't want to set this outside, but if you got anything on it or something like that, you'd be able to wipe it down, and that way it would help to seal the design. Now, it's beautiful the way that it is, but I love to add a little bit of greenery when I'm doing little block stacks like this. And so I'm just taking from Walmart some of their boxwood, and their boxwood is so beautiful, and I feel like it has a much more realistic color than say Dollar Tree's does. And so I really do like theirs. It might be, I think for the amount of sprigs you get, it kind of works out to be a little less actually. But like, I can't remember if it's $1.97 or $2.97, but you get like a really big, like a big stack of it, or not stack of it, like bushel of it. I don't know what you say, but you get a lot of it. And it's quite much more thick than Dollar Tree's. So I take 3 sprigs for each side off of my pick that I have. A pick, that's what it's called. you get a bigger pick of flowers. Anyhow, and so I put the one on the ends there, and then I'm taking 2 more and stacking on top of it, so it kind of looks like layered. So it's not just all clumped on there. You kind of have a little bit out toward the edge, and then it gets kind of thicker as it goes into the middle. And I'm just using a fair amount of hot glue in the center there. I will put a bow on here, but some flowers or something would also look very nice, something to kind of cover that middle section. You can even put a little bit more boxwood if you could get it to look really nice or anything there, but I just hold that till that glue has a nice, good, dry feel. Now, this is just a bow that I had from some of the Christmas decor that I purchased this year. I believe it was in a package that came from Hobby Lobby, and I think there was like 6 or 7 of these bows with some like little clips on them. So I'm just trimming down the edges because it's a little long for this project, and then I'm just going to use some hot glue to stick this down in the center, and that kind of brings in a little bit of that rustic burlap into there, which is really cute with it. I love the contrast between the burlap and that greenery on the picks. So again, it's just a little bit of hot glue that I stick down, and then I'm going to hold that bow until it completely dries. Another totally optional idea is if you want to rough up those little designs a little bit more, maybe you want to have them look a little bit more vintage, you can just lightly go over the top of them with your fingernail file. You may want to do this before you put your Mod Podge down, either that or go back and kind of reseal over it with the Mod Podge because you're just kind of like sanding it off at this point. But it kind of has a really nice touch to it to make it look a little bit more roughed up on the actual design. Again, just a total optional, but I thought I would just show this if this is something that you did want to try. I am so pleased and happy with how this piece turns out. I think it's beautiful, and I think it's going to be a great addition for like spring decor or even just some farmhouse decor. But the fundamentals of making this piece are the same whether you do it for any season or any style to fit your home. So if you're not specifically looking for something for spring or farmhouse or something, keep this in the back of your mind to remember for different projects for different seasons, because it is so simple to make, and look at how beautiful it turns out. And I think these would sell really well at like a boutique or bazaar or something like that. What do you guys think of this?
I picked this basket up when I very first started my channel a few years ago, and it's been sitting waiting for the perfect project, and I felt like it was time to redo this. So I'm just wiping it off really good, and I'm also going to sand the edges because they were a little rough, and that way it's not going to be super rough. It'll be a little smooth. I just didn't want to get any slivers or anything, to be totally honest with you. This basket is beautiful, but the color is just not something that I have in my decor, that kind of almost like orangey look tone to it. So I thought I would totally paint this. Now, spray paint might have been a better way to go. I'm not 100% sure. I just kind of started painting it with my chalk paint, and I used this chip brush to do it, which a chip brush just has those natural bristles in it there. So you may get a bristle or two to come out, but it's very good for distressing and adding texture, which is definitely what I wanted. So I paint the entire thing white. It did take a couple of coats. It did take a little bit of time. And I'm just going to take some painter's tape here because I really wanted to add a stripe to it. You guys know I love to add stripes to things, and so I thought this basket would be the perfect thing to do that with. So I just taped off a little area. I was just kind of eyeballing what would probably look the best. And I'm taking my vintage duck egg from Dixie Belle. But of course, when you're doing your projects, you're going to be matching your decor. So definitely pick a color that would be, even just a plain gray, I think would be really pretty and really basic if you wanted to, or even like a cashew type color would be really pretty. So just a little color, but not a lot, something to add a little variation. But it's very easy on the basket here to kind of go over the areas with that tape there. The tape does a really good job as far as being a barrier. And I feel like where you have the weave of a basket, you've got a little bit of a buffer there in case you did go outside of the lines a little bit. But you can see it turns out pretty cute. And on the top, I couldn't come up with a good way to space my stripes, and so in the end this is kind of what I came up with, and it did end up looking really good. You'll see here, but I mean, it's not the most even of stripes, but I distress it so it looks okay. No, I do go in and distress it though, because I really did want to have that really aged look to this. That little bit of like, this piece came from being around a really long time, has lots of stories to tell. And so I'm just going over with my fingernail file to really get that rustic look to this. And I even go over the basket part here, and you can see where all the weave of the basket is. It really does pick up that sanding and adds that really good texture for that distressed look. And I take my time and go through all the pieces. And on the white pieces, I will even sand those down to reveal some of the original color. And then I just take a baby wipe and wipe the entire thing down, because you get a lot of dust and everything. And I even did the handles. You can kind of see I distressed around the edges of the handles. This piece distressed up so nicely, but I think it turns out so beautiful. I feel like this has such a good French country vibe to me. I love it. It looks like it could just be maybe even like an old sewing basket that like your great grandma maybe had, or just some piece. I don't know. I think this turned out so beautiful, and I'm excited to use it in my home. And I will definitely use this one much more than I will the original color that it came.
I got this little bucket at a yard sale last summer, and I've been waiting for a wonderful project to use it with, and I'm so excited with how this turns out. Green is not my color, so I am going to spray paint it white. You can use one of these little buckets from Dollar Tree if you'd like. It does have the raised letters, so just know that. So after I wipe this down, I will just spray paint it with white. And I wanted to do, at Hobby Lobby, I've seen some items that say Farmhouse Local on them. So I just went into Google Images and found an image that I like and screenshotted it, and then I printed it on water slide decal paper. I'll leave a link to the paper down in my description box, but it was kind of in this rusty writing, and I really liked how it turned out. You'll use this clear gloss after you print your image, and you'll spray 2 coats on the water slide decal paper. You can kind of see this shine there that it gives it, and that just protects your ink. Then you'll just cut your image out to whatever size you would like it. I'm just showing you that it was in the middle of the paper, and I just cut it out, and I kind of detail cut it around the words there. And I'm just deciding which side is the best to place it on. And you'll just get some water. This is just like lukewarm water, and you're just going to place it down in. Now it's going to curl up. It's okay. Just let it curl up, because it's not going to stay like that when it gets on your paper. But you let this soak for about a minute and a half or so. You'll just take it off, and it's just going to slide from the backing. And then you're just going to place it on your item. And you can leave the back on it until you place it down, and then just kind of slide the back out from underneath it. I just chose to slide it off right there because it was starting to come off. And I just find the spot that I like, and you just start pressing it down. You will notice that there is some kind of like adhesive or glue or stickiness on the back of this little water slide decal, and that's what's going to adhere it to your item. So I'm just taking a paper towel, and I'm just moving the water from the outside, or from the inside to the outside. So I'm just kind of removing any bubbles. I'm pressing down to absorb any water, and then you still have room to slide it if you need to slide it either direction or anything like that. It's very easy to use, and you have a lot of wiggle room to kind of get it just precise and exactly how you want it. So you're just pressing down, removing any air bubbles or anything like that, making sure that there's no wrinkles or anything like that, and that you're drying it off. And then you're just going to let it sit for a little bit to completely dry. Then I am just taking some Mod Podge, because I do want this to have a shimmer. The spray paint I used was kind of a chalky finish, and that paper, since I sprayed the clear coat on it, is shiny. So I want this all to match. So that way I'm trying to make it so you can't tell that there's a decal on the front of this. So I'm just going over with some clear gloss Mod Podge. And you guys, you cannot even tell that there was like an edge or anything to that. It honestly looks like this is printed right onto this bucket. I absolutely love how it turns out, and I love the water slide decal paper.
This was the perfect size for a couple of little IKEA plants to sit down in, but how cute would a little strand of beads, wooden beads be hanging out of this? I think this is darling. I love it. Something that you definitely use all year round. I just love the greenery in there. It just seems summer and clean and crisp to me. Have you guys ever used the water slide decal paper? It is a total game changer. If you have not, I highly recommend it. So look for that link down in my description box. I've seen a lot of fun DIYs with old springs, and I found this at Vintage Market Days, and I picked it up thinking I would save it for springtime. It's very rusted, as you can see, so just be very careful if you're using any type of rusted metal that you don't cut yourself or anything. Now, I had a few people in my last video, I used Mod Podge to help form a nest out of Spanish moss, and I had a few people say try hairspray and see if that works better. So that's what I'm doing. I just have some aerosol hairspray here. I don't know that it necessarily worked a whole lot better. It could have just been the type of hairspray that I had. But either way, I felt like worked okay. So I'm still kind of on a mission, finding the best way to make a little nest, but I just kind of got it wet, whether you use Mod Podge, somebody suggested spraying Mod Podge or watering it down and putting it in a spray bottle. So I think maybe I'll try that next. But I just kind of formed it into the shape that I wanted, and I pushed it down in the center to make a little spot for some little eggs to go. You can see I'm using my heat tool here to kind of dry it so that way I could get it formed like just a cute little nest. And this is just Spanish moss. I buy mine in a big bag at Hobby Lobby because I feel like you get more and it's a little bit better quality than Dollar Trees, but they also sell it at Dollar Tree. So I'm just taking my spring here and forming that nest onto the top, and I use a little bit of hot glue to go around to make sure that it's set in there so it's just not going to fall off or anything like that. And it's very just be very careful because that hot glue can seep through that Spanish moss really quick. But once you do that, it kind of takes shape and it's starting to look super cute. I really love this, and I do take my scissors and go around the edge, kind of trim it up a little bit after I form it. That way it can, sometimes they can get a little out of control. You can see here I'm just trimming that there. So it's up to you, kind of how rustic you want it to look, or if you kind of want it to look a little bit, I didn't really want it uniform, but you know, I wanted it at least to kind of not be all over the place. So now I'm just taking 3 little eggs that I have from just a basket or a little container that I bought of these, and just little speckled eggs, and I glue them together so that way they're not going to fall out anywhere. I mean, it is a spring, so if there's like movement, it might kind of vibrate or bounce a little bit, so I just don't want the eggs to come out of there. And then I thought it would be really cute to take a little bit of greenery and just kind of tuck it in. Now I started using hot glue for this, but then I moved on to just some Elmer's Craft glue, just to kind of glue in a little piece and twist it around the Spanish moss. That way it just brings a little bit of the greenery, kind of has a little bit more of a fresh feel to it. This is the glue that I used right here. And it works really well. So that's just what I did to glue those in. Now, I forgot to record this part, so I'm just showing you the best I can of what I did. So I have this little aging kit here. I got it at JoAnns. I've seen them sell it at Hobby Lobby as well, or you could even just use antiquing wax. But it's this little like stamper thing with like velvet almost or something on it that you can kind of wipe this ink on pieces of paper or cardstock to age it. And so I'm just going around what I did. This is just like cardstock here, and you can see I'm bending it on all different ways. And what happens when you do this is it will create creases in your paper. So when you take your little dabber there and you rub it on, those creases will pop. And there's a couple different colors of ink here to use. And then I also will take it and spray it with some water. And the type of ink that it is, it will allow like, I want to say age spots, but I mean like those, like it looks like it's just really old. I'll show you up close here in just a second. I'm just drying this all off. I did this exact same process on a tag that I'm going to hang from this spring. So I just wanted to walk you through how I did that. But can you see all those little water spots on there? It just looks really aged. And then, so this is my tag. And what I did is this is a Dollar Tree rub-on transfer. I got this last year at springtime. I'm hoping I find more because I only found one last year. But I just placed it underneath this transfer and then just used a craft stick to rub it off onto the cardstock there. And you can see how absolutely darling. I love the vintage aged look of this, both sides of it. I think this is going to be darling tied onto our cute little spring. Now, when I fray my burlap fabric, I'm left with kind of these little strands of the burlap. And so I'm just using a bunch of those. I thought that would be really cute tied on here. So I just tied it around my tag, and then I'm just tying it at the top of this cute little spring
just below the birdhouse there, so this tag can kind of hang there. I felt like it really needed something else. I mean, you could leave it just plain with the spring and the bird's nest. I've also seen some really cute flower arrangements on the top of springs like this. I'm curious if you've seen anything with these vintage springs like this. I think they're so fun, and you can actually find them quite easily at the antique store. Like I said, I found mine at Vintage Market Days. Look at how absolutely darling this looks. I am so excited for this, and I mean, I know it's quite literally spring, a spring for spring. I just think it turned out beautiful, and I love the feel, and honestly, I love the tag just as much as I love the bird's nest on the spring.
Are you guys on Instagram? If you are, I would love if you would come and find me. I am Farm Charm Chic over there. I'll leave a link down in my description box so you can easily find me. But come and see what I'm working on. I post there quite a bit. I like to show you things that I'm working on or when I have videos ready. It's just another place to stay in touch. So if you do come find me, remember to send me a DM and say hi, because I do love meeting new friends.
I picked this darling little yellow bird up at a thrift store, and honestly, I don't remember paying $8 for it. It must have been a half off day because I really don't think I would have paid $8. Maybe I did. Anyhow, we're going to make him match my decor because I don't have anything this bright yellow. This is a really bright yellow, even brighter than what it's showing on camera here. And it's so nice to be able to pick up pieces that you love the shape of and be able to change them to match your decor. Of course, it's always convenient if you find the piece and it's already your color. And I know somebody's going to comment and say, oh, why did you paint that yellow bird? He was adorable. He is, but it's going to look really weird in my house with just one yellow bird. So I'm just painting him to match the decor, and I do that with just some white chalk paint. And I'm just using the Folk Art chalk paint here, and I give a very light coat on the first coat, a very light layer, and then just kind of build on that. It takes about 3 coats to completely get the coverage on this little guy that I need. This little guy had a beautiful finish on him where there was pieces like on the wing and on the beak and on his little tail that had looked really distressed, like almost like the yellow glaze had not gone on those areas. So I was trying originally to sand those areas to have them peek through. The problem is it was very sporadic and I was starting to get that yellow paint to pop through. So it takes me just a minute to figure this out, and I keep sanding because I'm like, I just don't know what really to do, and I was going to wait and see what it looked like in the end. So stick with me because there's a little process here that I go through to get this to how I like him in the end. But I take some burnt umber, just the cheap little apple barrel acrylic paint that I pick up at Walmart or anywhere that sells like acrylic paint. You can find this color. And I just am kind of lightly going over those raised areas. So where all that detail is on his tail and his wing, I'm just going over that with kind of a dry brush, a little heavier. You can see I'll swirl it in the paint and then kind of swirl it off the brush so it's not super heavy. And then I just kind of go over all those. And I'm going to go back over them with some white paint. So I'm not super worried about it being like the way that it looks right now. Because if you look at it, you're going, that's hideous. There's a lot of paint there. So just kind of watch and see how I do this. And it's kind of a process of going back and forth. But it has such lovely detail on here that I really just wanted to have that, enhance that, and have that show. Otherwise, it's just going to look like a unfinished like ceramic bird. And I did not want that. So I'm going over lightly, just dry brushing with the white to go over those little raised areas. And you can see it's just going over that brown, and it covers it, but it still pops through because it's such a light coat. But it just tones it down and makes it have that really rustic look. And I liked the way that it was looking, so I got my brown paintbrush here, and I even go over his little face because the details in the eyes were there, and I just wanted it all to kind of pop. And you can see I just go right back over that with some white to tone it down. And that way it just makes all of those little raised areas and that detail, like that's what's so fun about these pieces, is to have that pop. Now, if you've watched me for any length of time, you'll know that I love to have a piece that like looks like you found it in the barn, or it's been sitting out for years, or it's been like you found it in great grandma's attic or something that is just so aged That's my style and I love it. But you can kind of see that I just decided to go over the entire bird with the little bit of brown burnt umber in my brush and go all over. And what's happening is all of the brush strokes, since it's chalk paint, you get lots of those brush strokes in the detail, and it's picking up that paint and giving it a lovely texture. Like, I thought it looked so pretty. It almost looks like concrete when I'm done with this. But I can kind of go over it now. I still will go over with my white brush, but you can see I'm just getting the lightest amount of that brown. And you can see, especially right there, how those brush strokes, that texture, it enhances those and just gives it a nice aged finished look. And so here I'll take my brush and just go all over this again with the white, just to tone it down so it's not overly dark. I just like the way that the layered pieces look on this, or not layered pieces, but the layered paint looks on this. And at this point I'm like, okay, I really like this. I was really kind of unsure at first, but I just think he turns out to be such a cute little guy, and he's just perfect. And it's a neutral color that I can stick out year round and have in my decor. I love to have birds out year round. I really do love how he turns out. He's got that really natural tone that I can put really anywhere in my home, and he's gonna fit in and look beautiful. What do you guys think of him? I loved this little basket when I saw this little galvanized bucket here. I thought the handle on it was beautiful. And I also found this piece right here. And so I think one of them was like $1.50. The other one was about $3 for this piece with all these little bulb flowers in there. Now, this piece with these little flowers in there, I did not love the vase together with these. I felt like it was a little too tall, and I didn't love the color of the vase. It's a little bit more like heavy European feeling for like this style in my home. So I thought it would be really fun to transfer these flowers and put them into this cute little galvanized bucket here. I thought that would be really fun and make it a lot less formal than it was. So that's kind of the look that I'm going for here. So now I'm going to take this pot. I'm leaving all this styrofoam in it. It's glued in there pretty good, but I'm just going to set that aside. I'll have that for a future project to work with. And now I'm just going to focus on my little pail bucket here, whatever we want to call it. So I'm taking some floral foam here, and I'm just leaving it in the plastic. I learned this trick years ago. If you can leave that floral foam in that plastic, your cleanup is going to be so much easier. This stuff has the most like gritty feel. It gets everywhere, but I do have to use an open piece here in a moment. I'll show you. But I'm just rolling this around on my table to kind of smush down the edges so that way it will fit into my bucket here. I just want there to be a flat surface all the way across, because where I have the bottom of these flowers is a bulb. I wanted them to be able to be seen and not like be down into the bucket at all. So you can see here, I just had to take a little bit of the floral foam that was open, and then I just had to cut it to size to kind of slip in that negative space there. I really did love that these flowers, and I don't even know what kind of flowers these are. Even looking at them right now, I can't. You guys, if you know what kind of flowers these are, let me know down in the comments, because I can't tell. They don't look like buttercups. I'm not really sure, but they're beautiful, whatever they are. But I just love that bulb look to them. And as you can see kind of at the top of my screen there was also like some faux like roots that came that I can kind of have draping out of this, which were so cute. I just loved the natural feel of all of this. So I have a very specific like way I'm putting these in. I have like a specific front and back, and I'm trying to put like the largest kind of in the middle and taper them down so that way it looks very uniform. You guys have heard me before in here. I'm not a florist. I've had no special training. I just do what looks good and feels good to me and where it's going in my home. Yours may look completely different than how I do mine. But I will tell you that I spend so much time right here doing this, and I have to undo it in just a moment. So what I do to cover up that floral foam is I have a bunch of moss that I purchased at just the craft store. And this is where I'm realizing that my bucket handle was on different. So I have to take everything out, flip the bucket handle over, because like I said, there was a specific front and a specific back, and I wanted that handle to be seen in the front. So I had to kind of take these out. But I have some moss, that different kinds of moss in a bag that I got at Hobby Lobby. And it looked kind of almost like dirt to me. And so I'm using that along with some reindeer moss that I got at Dollar Tree. And I'm just going all the way around this entire surface of the bucket on top of that floral foam and covering everything so you cannot see the floral foam and you can't see like the fact that they're like fake flowers, like it leaves the bulb there, but I kind of even tuck that moss underneath them. And I just use a little bit of hot glue as I go along doing this. And I even use like a bamboo skewer to help me put everything down in between all those little hard to get areas, and that way I don't burn my fingers, and it's really nice to get that reach in between all of the flowers. I really love how this came out. This is a look at everything when it's all finalized and together. I really love the informalness of that pail there, like the galvanized metal. I loved how it was already distressed like this. It kind of has that nice little farmhouse feel to it, Euro cottage look. It feels like you did just kind of take these and planted them in this little pail and oh, look what grew up here. I just think it's really cute. And it's neutral enough that it'll match a lot of different decor styles. And I think it's going to be so cute in my home. What do you guys think of this? And if you know what kind of flowers these are, let me know. I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.